Yep, yep, I'm good.
They're not talking.
All right, we are on live. I got everybody tagged.
Go ahead and share that then.
Yep. There we go. We all set. All right. We all good? Everybody good?
Yes, sir. I don't see the tag. Is that on the ManUp page?
Oh, nope. Look, go in your in your notifications.
Okay.
I tagged you also.
Got you. All right, I got it.
All right, we on. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I know we had a little hiatus. We had some technical difficulties this previous week, but I think we got it going now. So thank everybody for being here. ManUp Series, real people, real talk, real issues. We got a good guest on today. One is very popular. You've seen him a whole lot. Let's introduce Julie and Mac to the ManUp Series.
What's up, y'all? Thanks for having me, man. I'm glad we're having these conversations, and it's important for, as men, I think we don't talk enough. Period. So it's good that we're getting how we feel and our views out to the community.
Yeah, definitely. And we appreciate you being on the show with us too, man. And just let everybody know, make sure y'all stay tuned to the end. Okay, I have a raffle. Guess what we got? Let me show y'all. All right. Raffling off t-shirt. All right, so make sure you tune to the end. We also got some other art products, hydrating, some skin coffee too. Every samples we're going to give out too. So make sure you stay tuned to the end. Make sure you're commenting. That's the way to get into the drawing. So let's do this. All right, Julie and Mac, give us a kind of a brief background on what got you started with being an activist.
Well, it starts with my mother. You know what I mean? It starts with my mother. My mother was 18 and entered BGSU in, I think, the most influential year in the 20th century, which was 1969, and was one of the first Black RAs on that predominantly white campus when there was, I think, 100 Black people or less at BGSU. All right. And that same year, I think they formed the Black Student Union and all of that. Right. So from that comes me. Right. I was born in 84. Right. In 88, I was one of those little kids at the Jesse Jackson for President rally. You know, I think my first protest was in the first grade when my mom talked to me about the apartheid and what was going on in South Africa. And she encouraged, she put, the tape on my, over the Nike sign on my shoes, which, that was a big deal at the time, and so to give you kind of the short version, I grew up, by the time I came along, my mom was very much a moderate Democrat, and I grew up in thinking the Democratic Party was what was up. I started volunteering myself when I was about 12 or 13 for school levies and for Jack Ford's campaign for state rep. And then he eventually became mayor. I went on to college, where I was College Democrats president. In 2006, was involved in the Black Student Union at the University of Toledo, and all that. And then, simply put, life happened, right? I got pulled over with some weed, just a little bit, like a 20 bag, right? And I lost my license. and I got a DUI for that, and my life changed drastically. All right, it changed the way I was able to. One, it changed my social circle. Right, it changed the women I was dating and talking to. It changed my ability to be able to succeed, as it was doing in school. It changed the jobs I was able to get. And so, I think I did. Yeah, in 2008, I knocked on about 10,000 doors over the summer for Barack Obama. But by 2009, when my oldest daughter was born, um, I was frankly depressed and did not. I struggled with making the connection with all of the sacrifice I put in with helping folks get elected, how that was affecting my day-to-day life, in all honesty. Um, I struggled being able to put a roof over my head, being able to provide, and doing the things that I thought a man should do and as a father should do. Um, and I didn't, the connection of how these people that I had put so much hope in and thought would make so much change, I didn't see being facilitated in my life. Right, I couldn't get health insurance, right, and all these things, and so I was really disappointed and kind of frustrated with politics. Now, during that time, I was also on probation, right, which facilitated a lot of interactions with law enforcement, a lot, right, over just being on probation, where oftentimes my life was in jeopardy. And I became sick of it, just sick of it to the point where I wanted to do something next time this happens to me, right? They're not going to get over on me like they did before. And I realized that fighting back with my hands was problematic and could accelerate my death. And that wasn't the best way to do it. So I in August of 2014, I saw a live stream from Ferguson. One of my best friend's last name is Ferguson. And like, what is this going on here? And I was fixated on that protest and what had happened and the things that they were saying and what they were talking about, to the point where I really couldn't go to sleep. And I saw what happened to Michael Brown and his body laying in the street for hours. And I honestly felt like that could happen to me any day. And so I wanted to go out. And if I felt like if I'm going to go out, I might as well go out fighting, but not with my hands, but with my ideology. And so I started protesting with my hands up, just like I saw the protesters in Ferguson do. I did that for 7 weeks straight. Shortly after that, a group called the Community Solidarity Response Network of Toledo formed. And I was happy because I finally felt like I didn't have to organize by myself, or like I wasn't the only person in the area that felt passionately about these issues that frankly neither party were addressing. And I felt like needed to be addressed on a local grassroots level. Because from what I learned about politics, I knew that if any substantial change was going to happen, it wasn't going to happen from the top down. It wasn't going to come from Obama. It was going to come from the people on the ground up. And so really, I've been organizing with that group ever since. I've had the honor of getting several pieces of legislation through City Council, Sensible Toledo, which decriminalized marijuana in the city of Toledo. There's some other issues with that, with how the city of Toledo uses the municipal code versus the Ohio revised code. I won't get into the intricacies of that. Move to Amend, which basically stated that locally, that money or corporations shouldn't be counted as people, right? And lastly, but what I think was most significant was the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, which was the first piece of legislation in the United States to give rights to an ecosystem, where we were able to get recognition, and I was able to speak on the floor of the United Nations for the action that we had for nature's rights, and for that action and passing that legislation locally. So I still continue to stay involved. I'm now seeking a spot this time next year to be elected to Toledo City Council. And that's where we're at right now. And we're doing our best to organize in these streets to make sure we can facilitate actual change in people's lives, not just making noise.
Definitely, definitely. You know, I heard something in the beginning where you had, you know, kind of talked about refining your circle. You know, I think a lot of people, you know, have that issue right now, you know, in the inner city, you know, and in a lot of inner cities, or just period, you know, just refining a circle of people that they should have around them that make them better. You know what I mean? So what was that like? Okay, once you went through your situation, what made it in your head flick like, you know what, I got to get a better circle around me? What was the major contributor to make you just, you know, come up like, I got to get better friends?
Well, the thing is I don't think I necessarily realized it. I mean, because I was just trying to survive. You know what I mean? Like I was depressed and all of the little idiosyncrasies of life, right? I was neglecting and not really paying attention to. What made a difference for me was when I started to serve other people and try to help the community, right? Like helping the community and serving the community without a doubt has saved my life. I'm you know, that's what, you know, changed my social circle and got me out of my own head and got me out of that rut that I was in for so many years.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Because
well, that's interesting you say that, especially with it being mental health awareness month. You know, that for you to get involved in something, and you said that helped to save your life, you know, would that be something that you suggest to others, you know, during this time? You know, a lot of, like I said, there's a lot of eyes on it right now just because it's awareness month. But you know, I've dealt with depression, you know, seasonal depression, and it's nothing to play with. It's nothing to play with. But I do, you know, I find myself sometimes staying busy, you know, and I wonder if is that a part of that, you know, so that doesn't allow me to get into that place. That's interesting you say that. I just want to kind of veer off for a second because I was interested. You said that you were depressed, and then once you got into this, you know, that kind of revives you, you know.
Yeah, and it was out of just self-preservation, right?
Yeah.
Like, so I didn't deliberately change my circle. It was just like, look, if I don't get out in these streets and start protesting, I'm gonna snap next time a police officer comes at me sideways. And I just knew it. I could feel it in my bones. But focusing on helping other people without me knowing it and deliberately making that connection, you know, it was I started doing it out of self-preservation, right?
Right.
But it ended up being a way of service. And I think you know, service, there's a Jackie Robinson quote I live by: life is only important in the impact it has on other lives, right? And you know, when I started to have a positive impact on other people's lives, it changed and affected, you know, my own self-worth. And you know, I don't know I don't know exactly how and when that happened, but it happened, right? And also being around people that helped other people, right? Because there was I don't know how real we get in here, right? But just because I got out of depression didn't mean that all those bad habits stopped, right? Like I had a lot of bad habits, right? And I was very much so a functioning alcoholic, right? And was dealing with the pain of, I could die tomorrow with getting drunk every night. Wow. Right. And so you know, a lot of people don't know this. One day, I thought I was sitting down and going to a Black Lives Matter meeting, and it was actually an intervention. And they sat me down, and I mean, it was just like the TV show, man. They read the letters, it was tears, everything, you know. But that was one of the it was hard, but it was one of the best things that happened to me, because that, like, before I was just I had like accidentally moved into a better space, but I was still carrying all these bad habits with me.
Yep.
right? But that caused me to, you know, I guess be the master of my fate and the captain of my soul, and seek the help that I needed, acknowledge that there were some issues, and be deliberate about being the best man I could be on a day-to-day basis. And where I fall short, well, just try better tomorrow. But I was the best I was today. I was the best I could be today.
Right. Man, thank you for sharing. That's really being transparent, man. And again, to your point earlier, we don't do that enough, especially with each other. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody liked, Lit Julian, you know what I mean? But nobody was there around Lit Julian when problems would arise, right?
Yeah.
Everybody would turn on me, but
When you came down, everybody's gone,
Yep.
Yep.
And so, the thing is like, I think all of these experiences are valid, right? And there's a lot of ways that we can go through an educational process in life, not just from formal schooling. And, a lot of times we let the shame from that stuff happen. Oh man, I had got 2 DUIs. Well, what did I learn from that? And how did I bounce back from that? Right? Own it. You know what I mean? And so, I'm a man that's made plenty of mistakes, but I'm doing my best to own them today. And that's how I grow. That's how I grow. And hopefully someone else can learn from the garbage and trash and the mud that I was trudging through, you know what I mean? By my transparency. So, maybe that'll help them get out of their situation, or something, because life has its way of, whether you're high or low, of, we all go through seasons, you know what I mean? And where you're at now doesn't have to be where you stay.
And you know what? I'm glad you are, the transparency, man, because, a lot of people don't see that from us. We keep everything hidden, you know what I'm saying? But like you said, when you find your calling, that's when everything starts to come to light and you really start to understand what you're here for. You know what I mean? So, like I said, I've been paying attention for a long time, man. I've seen you down, the jail. I worked at Lucas County Jail. I've seen you down there, doing your thing, trying
How long
to
you work there? You didn't work there.
I've been working down there. I've been working down 13 years. So I've seen you
down there
way,
that
man.
one night when I had to spend the night there.
I don't know. I don't remember.
But it's been a little while. It's been a while since then, but
that's awesome. And anybody always saying that, I'm like, man, listen, I do not like y'all down here, period. But I'm gonna do everything I can to always get you out. You know what I mean? So no matter what what you say, Rob?
No, I was just saying that's part of the journey. That's part of the journey.
It is. It's all part of the journey, because we've all gone through our rough patches to where we don't know where we're going to go. But once we find our calling, like in business, we have a health and wellness business. And a few years ago, I had no idea what I was doing. I just thought, working a regular, 9 to 5 and retired at 32 years was the dream. But I found out that that wasn't the dream, and I wanted to take advantage of my time. So trust me, when you find your calling, man, it's a beautiful thing, man. You actually start to motivate other people. So,
and that's the thing is, man, I had some blind spots where like originally when I was in college, I wanted to be mayor by the time I was 30. Right. But I had lived a rather middle-class life, right? My mom was a teacher, and dad owns his own business and worked at Chrysler. Right. And so there were some blind spots, like politically, that I just didn't relate to. Like I from an educational standpoint, was like, oh yeah, Black people, we need affirmative action and right. But like, as far as how the war on drugs had, ravaged our community for more than a generation, which both parties were complicit in. I ain't really know. I didn't know that from personal experience until it affected my actual life, Yeah. So
that's now. So now I want to get into the meat of some of this stuff. You just said something very key. You said both parties were complicit. So here's a question that I ask now, especially being older and educated a little more. What's your take being involved in politics and activism? What is your take on how we should view our political parties today? Are they, there's a dichotomy, right? I mean, a lot of times, I mean, we say, okay, there's an independent party, this and that, but most of the time it comes down to Democrat, Republican. Is that still a healthy way to view politics today, especially as a black man, black woman, um, a young black man, young black woman just coming into being able to vote? Is that still a healthy way to view our politics? And do you see things maybe changing?
Well, they have to change, right? They're not sustainable the way they are, right? We talk about, criminal justice reform all the time and broken things with the educational system, but our political system is broken. It doesn't work. It doesn't represent the people, and neither do the parties, right? The left wing, right wing are both two sides of the same bird that serve the well-to-do, and they serve corporations. They serve the haves, not the have-nots. Does that mean that we should take our ball and go home? Absolutely not. Right. I think that means that we should be active participants in fixing that system and rebuilding a community in America or Ohio or Toledo that works for us. So specifically, what do I think that means? And I think there's two actual issues that on a local level that can make a big difference. One, we got to get money out of politics, man. It drowns out the people's voices, right? So if we look at what's going on with let's look at it, right? Let's look at what's going on with politics, right? There was allegedly, 4 city council members, they were indicted by the FBI for some sort of pay-to-play scheme with the internet casinos, right? Where, but that was gone down as campaign contributions, right? That didn't end up being used as campaign contributions, right? On the state level, Larry Householder, the Speaker of the Ohio House. Now, this shows the difference between the city level and the state level, right? On the city level, we're talking like $40,000, something like that. On the state level, it was a $61 million pay-to-play scheme with First Energy, right? And
yeah, I saw that. Yep.
Yeah, like this is huge, and he still has his seat, right? Like while I think that there's some nuances that folks might be missing. All right, I do think that the people, the city council people, should have stepped aside and all that, but the Speaker of the Ohio House is still in that position and up for re-election right now. You know what I mean? And they haven't asked him to move aside. And effectively, they use that money to lobby and lobby to push it was like a $1 billion bailout for First Energy, right? And then 2, they used it to campaign for other people around the state to put them in positions, to basically serve that to make that work, Yeah, and then on a national level, right, you got Steve Bannon, right, who was arrested for, doing all these negative things with I'm not even going to get into how corrupt Donald Trump and his administration is. Otherwise, that's all we talk about.
He was a good dude at first, and then all that came up. You don't even know him.
He's been crooked, and he's emblematic of the exploitation that Donald Trump exhibits on people and workers is emblematic of slavery, right? Like this man has talks about illegal immigrants or undocumented citizens, excuse me, and but he has them build his hotels and doesn't pay them, right? And he exploits them for their labor. And this happens in more than just America, in several other countries, So even if you agree with his politics, like the way that he functions as a human being is just trash, and of low moral character, right? So the first thing, real quick, is getting money out of politics, right? The best thing to do that is with Citizens United. There's been a direct increase on dark money, which is like untraceable money, for campaign contributions due to a ruling called Citizens United. There needs to be an amendment to overturn that, or we need to pack the Supreme Court to get rid of that. The other thing we can do locally is a thing called ranked choice voting. And this is one of those, another initiative that I'm starting to get in on the ground level on. And you may not see this be on the ballot for a couple years, but if we get Ohio on board with this, it's gonna change America. We're essentially, right now it's just red or blue, right? And that doesn't accurately capture the, right? There's some people that are purple. There's some people that are light blue. There's some people that are dark blue. It doesn't effectively capture an accurate picture of the electorate, right? When you just say red or blue. So then, so what we want to do is introduce ranked choice voting, which has been introduced in a couple other states, but do this on a statewide level where you rank your choices 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? Which, so say if your favorite choice is out, so like say I voted for Bernie, but I liked Elizabeth Warren second and Kamala Harris third, right? But, you know, say Bernie wasn't even close to getting half the votes, then, you know, my second choice would come into play, right? And so essentially, those are two things that can be done immediately that we can work on right now to correct our political system. And then nationally, getting rid of the Electoral College, because it's meant to diminish the voices of Black people and of marginalized people. So that's a start. But yeah, our political system is broken and it needs fixed, but that doesn't mean take your ball and go home, because there's, you know, if you forfeit your voice and your vote, somebody else, that doesn't mean you're not participating. That means you're giving somebody else the opportunity to make that choice and speak for you. You know what I mean? I think some people think if I just am apathetic and don't participate at all, well, I don't really know what's going on. No, that means somebody else is speaking for you. Right. And, you know,
that's great.
That's
a great point. And I'm interested to hear from Clarence, being a younger Black man. How do you, what's your thought on, you know, politics and voting, and are you motivated right now?
Well, I guess I would say this year is real important for me to like kind of pay attention to that stuff, like politics and things. I was never really into that, but seeing how things are going and how history is trying to repeat itself and things are trying to convert backwards instead of moving forward, it's like, yo, I need to really kind of start learning more about this stuff, so I can actually be more aware of what I need to be doing when I go to the polls, like who I actually need to vote for and why I'm voting for them, not just doing it because somebody said do it. Yeah. So, you know, being a young man right now, you know, this year I'm trying to learn as much as I can. So I'm taking notes today because politics has never been something that I've been like big on. But this year, you know what I'm saying, I'm trying to learn a little bit more, open myself up to broaden my understanding, you know what I'm saying, about how important it is to vote. You know what I'm saying, how important it is to, you know, probably get connected with a group of people that are into politics and that can teach you the ropes and show you how to move so that we can pull some of our 18-year-olds and things to the forefront because their voice need to be heard. So that's my take on it this so far.
I mean, offer just a little bit of advice, man, is so right now that we've seen with Facebook and everything and with the internet in general, well, like this with this show, there's a democratizing of information, right? There used to be just a few sources, right? Quote unquote trusted sources that you could go to. Now there's a source for every single viewpoint that exists, which can be dangerous. So I would just encourage people to familiarize with yourself with sources that kind of lean towards the middle. You know what I mean? And then kind of look at the left leaning and look at the right leaning sources, but familiarize yourself with sources that come from the middle and are as I think there's always some kind of bias, but have as little bias as possible, you know, and that way you can get the real deal. Because we're in the middle of a misinformation campaign, right? This isn't a conspiracy, right? Russia did use Facebook and Twitter to spread misinformation in 2016 to suppress the black vote, right? This is a fact, right? Like they made pages that looked like Black Lives Matter that said, "Oh, Hillary, super predator, why vote?" and made memes like that. So it's good to start digging for information, but you want to make sure the information is legit, because there's a lot of strings being pulled with the internet and social media right now that frankly we just have to be careful of.
That's good stuff.
And I think just overall, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all from my standpoint. I just think us as a community, we gotta vote. We can sit here and say all day long, oh, it's electoral college, this, sometimes our vote doesn't count. But when we're voting in a low percentage, something is up with that, because numbers matter. If we're not voting, of course, nothing's going to get done. Of course, we're going to have the same people in office. But us as community, we have to get out and make sure we advocate and voting. And whether, my thing is like being, a lot of felons, if you got a felony, they don't understand that they can't vote, but you can vote. If you're not currently sentenced, you can actually vote. I hear so many times you guys in jail like, oh man, I can't vote. I got a felony. I can't do nothing, but you actually can vote. And I think a lot of people don't know that. So I just think the whole aspect of us and numbers going out and voting is such an important thing, man. That's just my stance on it.
Yeah, one of the things my lady Ruth did last week, right before the voting registration for this cycle closed, was she went to the jail with a couple of other groups and registered people to vote that were in jail, right? You can still vote and be in jail as long as you're not serving time for a felony. Currently, you can vote. And, as far as voting, right, like people reference Malcolm X all the time, by any means necessary. And we think about that picture of him by the window with the gun looking out the window, right? By any means necessary doesn't necessarily, it means possibly violence, but it means by any means necessary. So that means voting is one of those means, right? I do understand, but sometimes we like have these conversations and we take shortcuts and we don't exhaust all the means for change. By any means means exactly what it says. By any means, we should be using every single tool. We should be using Black businesses. We should be using Black educational, we should be educating ourselves. You know what I mean? We should be voting at the voting booth. Use all the tools. Use all the tools, right? And so we can't eliminate voting just because voting is all of these systems are messed up and rigged towards us, right? That doesn't mean we completely sit out, right? Like,
yeah. So why do you feel that people say that, my vote doesn't count, my vote doesn't matter, it doesn't really matter, because you hear that a lot, and I think, and I would really encourage a lot of the younger audience to make sure you get out and vote. But there are some older individuals that are discouraged from voting.
Well, here's why I say I understand. Right, we've seen 2 elections, at least in my lifetime, where the person who got the most votes didn't win. You know what I mean? Right? Like, what's up with that? Right? Like, so, I mean, I get it. You know what I mean? I think we see we see the largest civil rights movement in American history, and we see, politicians acting tone deaf, right? Like acting like, folks have been marching for 6 years, right? And they're just starting to say Black Lives Matter. You know what I mean? And they want to put on kente cloth and take a knee. You know what I mean? Like, I understand the frustration, but we need to use every single tool. Right. You know what I mean? And And like I said, if you don't speak out and use your voice, somebody else is going to use it for you. And it's probably going to be someone that does not have your best interests at heart. Right.
That's right. That's right.
I don't think that, I think it's a false narrative that I think, I think even low information voters are more savvy and more educated than we give them credit for. Right. Like, I think a lot of times politicians like talk this talk above people's head and don't meet folks where they at. And but if you explain, but folks know their water bill's going up. You know what I mean? And they know there's a problem with that, right? And they know something ain't right here because we voted for that levy last time, right? Like, folks know something's right, even folks that don't really know and aren't engaged, right? And so I encourage people to get plugged in, but and I encourage, like, we live in Toledo, man. These folks are touchable, right? Like, and I know that from personal experience, a little more intimately than most, but if you got a problem or a question, go holler at them. You know what I mean? Go talk to them, send them an email, right? Like, these people on city council and the mayor, they're reachable, right? Like, anybody in Toledo it's like 3 or 4 degrees of separation at the most, right? But local officials are really accessible, and if you email them, they get it. They don't get that many emails, right? And so I encourage folks to if you got a question, ask them.
Yeah, because that's where real, and we talked about this before, right? That's where the real change happens. If you really want to see some change, quicker, I guess, get involved locally. I think, understanding, getting in where you fit in locally, it can help in tremendous ways, because that's where the decisions are made as far as what businesses coming to your city, zoning and, just different things like that. That when you see stuff pop up and things start changing in your community, you're like, well, when did that happen? Man, that's Trump's fault. No, that's not Trump's fault. They made that decision in the meeting, 3-4 months ago, and now it's coming to fruition.
Right. How does Amazon get all the Southwick's property, you know what I mean, and pay nothing? Right. How does ProMedica get the city of Toledo to pay for a parking garage? Right. Why are they getting these deals? You know what I mean? But the average Black man is trying to start up a business
and can't even do
struggle, right? And I think that's what Martin Luther King said. We have socialism for the rich and rugged individualism for the poor. You know what I mean? And essentially, like, that's what we're looking at. A lot of these big corporations, and like I said, both parties are guilty of this. I think one more than the other, without a doubt, is propping up corporate welfare, right? Meaning the Republican Party more than the other, but they're both guilty of it. But what I'm for is these governments should be working for the people, not the corporations. And we see the impact of this on every single level. Like, man, for example, man, with the Lake Erie Bill of Rights, we tried to get, like, that's something I got involved in. I didn't know how to get something passed. Like, how do I get something passed if I'm not on city council, right? And I got involved on that. Like, there was a workshop or something. Somebody sent it to me. It was like really early on a Saturday morning. I went to it and I stayed plugged in with them. And, we started working on this and this took 4 years, you know what I mean? And, the amount of hurdles that we had to go through was incredible. Like, BP, we had one opponent, and it was BP, and they put in $200,000 in opposition in opposition for us, and we raised like $6,000, but it still passed. You know what I mean? And that passed, and that literally shook up the world. You know what I mean? Like, we went from a meeting at Levis Commons to the United Nations with that. You know what I mean? And that all just started with, let me see what these white people doing over here. How do they get stuff passed, right?
And that's why we want people to listen in, because what you just shared, that's so valuable. That's so valuable. And I was about to ask you, like, what are some things that we can do, tomorrow? I mean, get involved in to really take part in change and which and stuff you just described right there. What are some things that you can think of off the top of your head that,
like, we're at the same spot right now with ranked choice voting, right? Like about 2-3 months ago, it was just kind of in the beginning stages. This is something, like I said, that might not be on the ballot for another couple years, but it's something that can fundamentally, if you're tired of voting red or blue, or people telling you vote blue no matter who, that's something people need to be involved in, right? That's something that can fix our democracy so that it can more accurately represent the diverse opinions that we have. And because the problem is who's ever in power doesn't carry 50% of the vote. You know what I mean? And so you have like a small segment of the population, a fraction of a fraction, because half of people vote on a good day, right? And then you split that into 3 or 4 pieces, you're looking at a very small percentage of people that actually want this person in power, right? And so ranked choice voting, I think is a good thing. I think if you go to Rank the Vote Ohio, Rank the Vote on Facebook, that's a good thing to get involved with. I think
rank the vote? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I was like, how do we do that? Rank the vote. Okay.
Yeah, or Rank the Vote Ohio. But yeah, I think they meet once a month, couple times a month, right? And the thing is I always wanted to I believed in what we were doing, right? Like, I definitely believed in the Lake Erie Bill of Rights. But I also wanted to see how this stuff worked, and I wanted to understand how this stuff worked in case, there was some legislation that, our community wanted to put on the ballot, right? And so, and that's done without city council, right? Like, I want to stress that. That's all these people that supposedly work for us, that are supposed to represent us. Even when that breaks down, we can still say, nah, we're doing this anyway. Now it takes some work. It takes, but that can happen, and so when people ask, like, oh, I want to get involved, what should I do? I always think, what do you love to do? What's already your passion? And you just put that social justice spin on it, right? So, like, I was already into politics, kind of. I already like talking politics, so I just talk about it more. You know what I mean? But there's other people who own businesses. Put that, how do we put that? How do we empower other Black businesses, right? There's other people who are into, or I think all of y'all, health and wealth. You know what I mean? How do I confront the health disparities in the Black community, right? Like, there are so many fronts that we need people to be on their post on. You ain't got to be picky. You just got to pick. You just got to do something, right? And that's the thing, is you don't have to be great at it. You don't have to be well versed at it. Just start doing something to save and liberate our people. And if each of us do something, none of us have to do too much. You know what I mean? And we'll be all right.
It just like you said, it's just about showing up, man. That's half the the whole equation right there. Just showing up,
Exactly.
A lot of people, they don't want to show up. They rather sit in the back and see what happens. But sometimes you gotta stand on the forefront and be there to represent the cause, man. That's all it takes.
Don't take your ball and go home.
Period.
You can't win that way. That's the thing. Everybody wants to take their ball and go home because they took an L. Mm-hmm. Oh, we didn't win this election, or oh, I voted for somebody, or oh, I really don't know. Nah, you stay there. I mean, just think of it like the playground, man. you don't leave after one loss. Okay, I got next then, right? I got next. I got the ball. I'm not taking my ball and going home. Who running with me? You know what I mean? And you get a team together and you run it back. And if you lose again, well, okay, maybe we drop that guy. All right, let's run it back. You know what I mean? And you run it back again. And what happens is each time you run it back, you learn a little something. You get a little better. You figure out how to move different. You know, and that's how you eventually win. But if you go home, you ain't never gonna win because you can't.
Life don't stop, man.
Exactly.
Life don't stop.
Because other people keep playing. The game's still going on. Just because you decide to leave and not pay attention doesn't mean the game is stopping. You just silencing yourself. So
that's good stuff.
It is, man. Because we learn from failure. Failure is the best learning experience ever, man, because nobody's ever going to win all the time. We're going to take losses, period. But it's like, what do you do after you lose?
Get back up.
Yeah, you get back up. Exactly. Just like Julian said, it's time to run it back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, run it back. Yeah. Man.
I like how he said, we might not want to use that guy.
Yeah, right. And that's the thing, you learn. And here's the thing, like, we got to remember, we've always had to do this. At what point in American history, or even before American history, have Black folks not had to stand up, join together, and try to win this game?
Right.
It's always been this way. Who are we to think that we don't have to participate and collectively join together? Come on, man. We got to get in the game. You inch forward, and hopefully things are better for your kids than they were for you. You know what I mean? But we can't not show up.
Hey, Julian, so I got another question. I know I'm asking a lot of questions, y'all. What do you think about there's a lot of, and whoever's listening, whatever, you support who you support. I'm not here to tell you who to support or not.
I will.
And that's fine. But, I know there's been a lot of opposition to Trump, and especially in the Black community, of course. But there's also been a lot of support in the Black community for Trump. What's your take on why there's so much support for Trump and from the Black community?
Well, I think first let's keep it in perspective, right? Like, so I think if we look at the 2016 numbers, so traditionally about 10% of Black folks vote Republican, right? And I think he might have had a bump up by about 5%, right? And most of those Black people were Black men, right? So, I think that, so why did some of them vote for Trump? I mean, one, I think I think like as Black folks, we have a problem with the establishment. There's been a lack of acknowledgement of the failed, I think both parties have acknowledged a failed war on drugs and how that ended up being a new Jim Crow and a war on brown and Black people. But neither party's doing anything about it, right? And so in the same way I felt in 2009, some folks feel like, well, what do I have to lose? Because they're not doing anything about it. And so because Trump was a non-traditional candidate, I think some folks felt like, oh, well, maybe because he's not part of the establishment or part of that system that oppressed me so much in the 90s and the 2000s, maybe he'll do something different. The fact of the matter is he has done something different, and he's done something a lot worse, right? Like where, I don't know if you noticed, and they brought this up in the debate, 1 out of 1,000 Black people have died from COVID, right? So think of 1,000 Black people in every city, you know what I mean? 1 out of 1,000 Black folks have died from COVID. He's not doing it. He won't acknowledge systemic oppression, right? And he publicly aligns with white supremacists, So I mean, if you don't realize that that's a warning sign, I would ask the question, that Malcolm X asked, who taught you to hate yourself? Right? Like, because there is absolutely internalized oppression that we pick up on in our society as a survival technique, right? Where we mimic the behaviors of our oppressor. And we think that if we behave more like our oppressor, it'll take us further along. And I think that Black men are susceptible to falling victim to that, right? Specifically within the Black community, like heterosexual cisgender Black men, right, are susceptible to mimicking, especially at this point in time, are mimicking the behaviors of our oppressor. And so we have to watch out for that. Donald Trump is a danger to humanity, right? All over Earth. And he's an existential threat, right? So I'm not a Biden fan, right, at all, or a Kamala Harris fan, frankly, right? But fascism, like this man is literally destroying the institutions that that already oppressed us and making them worse, and so to the point where, look, if this man gets reelected, brother, I might not be on your show because he's gonna think I'm a terrorist, and this is not a joke. He's calling Black Lives Matter organizers, people that are standing up, saying that we don't deserve to be, killed by the cops without any consequence. He's calling us terrorists, right? So, like, that's a problem. That's a real problem. And I can't underline how much of a threat he is to the existence of America, right? This is an experiment, right? And I think sometimes we romanticize the idea of revolution, especially in activist circles, and we can say, oh, well, America's never worked for Black people, let's burn this whole thing down, right? But we forget how bloody and how dangerous revolution can be, right? So, like, if there's a way that we can facilitate a better culture where, we don't have this massive, this second-class citizenship in America, and folks don't have to die, I'm for it, right? Like, I don't want my children growing up in the middle of a revolution, personally, like realistically looking at what revolution actually is, right? If we can facilitate that. And so there's one last thing I want to say on this presidential thing. Let's compare. So I think when we look at presidential candidates, we often look at their history before they get in the White House and not after. So, like, on paper, like, you would think that Barack Obama would be much more progressive than, say, Lyndon Baines Johnson, who is a Southern Democratic racist, right? But we have to look at the time and what as much as it matters, we only, I think, look at it as who that person is in the White House, and not what we as a collective community and what the people do to them, right? So Lyndon Baines Johnson was a racist, you know what I mean? Abraham Lincoln was not for the abolition of slavery, but what the people in that moment did to that president is what ended up changing history. And I do think we have an opportunity, right, because Biden isn't an authoritarian like Trump, right, who wants to run things like a dictator. We do have an opportunity to put pressure on them at this moment in history to make a better future for our children. So,
okay, I got a question from Chris McBrayer. He has a question, which is a good question. Should we fight for our equality? And then I'm gonna even combo that question. How and where do we start if we do fight for equality?
I mean, yes, we have to fight for equality, right? And I would even say, we could even fight for a little more than equality, equity, right? Like because there's some catching up that we have to do, right? Even if we all are equal tomorrow. But you start with what you love, right? Like you can't just plug yourself in anywhere, right? There's so many different areas where we need help. Just start with what you love to do, right? So like I said, I grew up talking politics, right? Being around politics, you know what I mean? And all of that. So I just naturally fall into that, right? Other people like coaching, right? Other people are into businesses. Other people are into art, right? All of these things are necessary. It doesn't have to be one thing, but I think we have to, I think it is important that we use our imagination, right? I think one of the most devastating things oppression does to us is it takes away our creativity to be able to dream of a better tomorrow, right? So like we think of, we start limiting ourselves in our thinking of what's possible, right? And what we can create. So I think we should be we should have the audacity to think big, right, in regards to the change that we can make, but make change like directly with the stuff that you're passionate about, and just plug yourself in and work away with the stuff that you just love to do already, right? And put that social justice liberation spin on it, on how we can free each other. I'm gonna try to answer the questions a little shorter.
Yeah.
You know, that Monster Energy drink, when it gets to me,
That's all right, man. That's all right. We get there.
Yeah. We coming up on the hour right now, so I want to get to the closing of the social. Julian, kind of close us out on the show on what you got going on in these next few days.
Next few days?
Yeah, next few days, next few hours. What you got going on tomorrow?
Okay. Well, I'm still encouraging everybody to vote. All right. I also have a podcast, the Together United podcast. You can listen to that where, you know, for the first half hour, we go into what's going on locally in local politics. Yeah. And then so I'm encouraging everybody to show up to vote, right? And as we try to deconstruct this system and build a better one. And then look, I'm running for city council next year. We got about 380 days till I can be elected. And you know, a lot of people think that, listen, I've seen people like Pete Gerken, I've seen people like Nick Comimes make that transition from activist to city council member, but they try to tell Black folks you can't do that, right? You got to come from the business sector in order to be able to do that. You got to, you know, and I have the audacity to say, prove me wrong, right? And I think that a radical Black activist can represent the entire city and deserves a voice on city council, and to stand up to the powerful corporate power structures, right, of Amazon and ProMedica, and say, no, you need to prioritize the people first.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a journey that I'm going on. And in recent history, I haven't seen, I tend to be a student of local history, and I haven't seen many Black activists be able to make that transition, right? They'll make that transition to preacher or to the church, but not to building political power for our community, right? And I want to do that. It's not about me, it's about building political power for the community, because I want to kick the door down to make it easier for other folks that may have made some mistakes like me in life, may be a little rough around the edges, might have got caught up with a bag of weed or two, right? And make it so they can still run for office too, right? Because those voices deserve to be heard, and those experiences are valid.
Yeah, and those individuals are in office anyway. They just don't look like us.
That's right. That's right.
I think in line with what you said too, man. I mean, and I think I heard a recent conversation about this. We need to get more younger activists and political minded individuals in office, because we've been living on tradition and old ways for so long that's why things don't change. Sometimes because we got old ways of thinking, or to pay your dues thinking, and you didn't waited 50 years to get in the office, and I think somebody was talking about this. You wait
Yeah.
all this time to get in office, and
Yeah.
now by the time you get in office, you talking about the stuff you wanted to do back 50 years ago. And I'm
Yeah.
exaggerating with 50 years, but
Yeah.
shoot, some of
Not
it is
really.
30.
I mean, not really. There's several people who were in office who were in their 70s, right? So like, and a lot of that mindset,
Yeah.
was from the things that they wanted to do when they were 20, right? Like, and so I mean, one of the things I try to do, so here's what I've tried to do to guard myself against that, right? Because that is something I heard the same person talk about that,
Yeah.
right? And I think they're valid, right? Because Martin Luther King, right, was pretty. What he died in his mid 30s, I think, or even younger than that. A lot of the work, I think, the march, the Selma March was when he was 25, I believe. But so here's what I want to do to counter that is my volunteers. I'm calling them activists, right? I think that a big problem with leadership is that they don't fix anything, right? Because they profit off of being in that position, right? So like, I don't want to be marching and being an activist with a sign and all this 20 or hell, even 10 years from now. I want to empower more people to be able to do what I do more effectively, right? And essentially move to the point where we don't have to be on the corner protesting because the system has changed enough for us to be able to facilitate the necessary changes that we need. And so what I want to do, but I know one of the hardest things as an activist is knowing where to put the pressure, right? You can know something's wrong, but you don't know who to call, who to email, where to protest, right? Who to protest. And so as I'm, since kind of making this transition from activist, or I'm in this middle ground from activist to activist, public servant, politician, whatever you want to call it. I want to train other people, right? And so we're gonna have workshops like for my volunteers, right? And I want them to hold me as accountable and not held. So I want those people I want them to hold me as accountable as I held Councilman Sykes, right? I want them to hold me accountable and tell me what needs to be done, right? And there are some workshops. There's if you're interested, matter of fact, in learning more about how to run for office or how to help somebody else run for office, because a lot of these white politicians, what they just want us to knock on doors, right? They don't want to teach you how to be the treasurer or how to be the campaign manager or things like that. The Freedom Block, which is a statewide organization, has 6 workshops coming up between November and March, and I want to get as many people from Toledo in that as possible. And it usually costs money, but I think this is free. So hit me up and I'll get you plugged into that.
Awesome. Definitely. So yeah, Rob, you got anything to close out the show?
No, I mean, mostly that was my biggest thing. I mean, we could probably talk forever on politics, man, because it's something that I try to stay abreast on, but I don't really get too deep into the picking sides, because to his point, I mean the rank the vote.
Yeah.
That's a great concept, because there are a lot of times there are things that I agree with on some ends, from a Democrat or even an independent. Some things I can pull from from each one. You know, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I don't classify myself as that. So, you know, there's some
free black man.
I mean,
That's what I'm talking about, though. That's all right. That's good.
But, you know, but we grow up and people, you know, they say, well, you need to pick it. They almost make you feel like you got to pick a side. You know, but we live in a world where, I mean, it's really, there's no right answer from anybody, right? I mean, everybody doesn't have a solution. If they did, then we'd be in a better place.
So throughout my life, I've seen our politics become more like sports and our sports become more like politics, right? Where everybody picks a team, right? Vote blue no matter who, you know, like they're the Cowboys or something, right? Like, and, you know, politics, especially as a community, it's you demand something as a community and you should be getting something for your vote. Now, I don't mean like quid pro quo or nothing like that, but we should be. I don't want the FBI at my house tomorrow, right? but what I do, what I do mean is that, right? Like we as a community have sacrificed. We knock on doors. We put in all this labor for candidates that do very little for us. And then every 4 years they want to engage us,
right.
and that needs to stop. We need to be leveraging our collective power to empower our community for our own self-determination.
I like that definitely.
Clarence, you got anything to close out the show?
Get out and vote. Get out and vote. Get out and vote. Your voice matters. Your thoughts matters. Make it happen. Let's get it.
All right. Now I got to pick the winner of the t-shirt and the t-shirt and our sample products. All right. And so far right now, my winner who I got is Chris McBrayer. All right. Chris.
Nice.
Chris is, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'll let him know. I'll send this out to you. I get your size and man, we'll get you going, man. Thanks for commenting with us and being interactive on the show.
And Chris is doing some awesome things in the community too. He's doing what you were talking about, Julian. I mean, he's doing what he loves, you know.
That's exactly what I mean, man. Like Chris is like, yo, meet me here in this parking lot, show up with ironing boards, and we're gonna use those ironing boards to free the next generation. So they ain't gotta worry about having wrinkled clothes and
that's right.
Iron those clothes. Like something even small, like just learning how to tie a tie, like basic stuff, you know, can empower. And it just, we just gotta meet folks where they at.
There it is.
There it is. There it
Can I get the shameless plug in? Follow me on
yes, please.
On Twitter and on Instagram at Golden Rule Mac, and on Facebook, Julian Golden Rule Mac for Toledo City Council.
Definitely.
And also, I got to do this because I know it'll get on somebody's nerves. Shout out to the Qs.
Hey. They always say that Qs make the best friends, though, man. They always make the best friends.
All right, everybody. I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. Julian, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate you being with us.
Thank y'all for having me.
I appreciate the viewers too for being, going. We had a lot of people that was commenting. I appreciate y'all, man. And we should have another show coming up. We'll keep y'all informed. Other than that, thanks for tuning in. Man up, real people, real talk, real issues. Y'all have a good night.
Yes, man. Peace.